Hi and welcome to another episode of the Getting Things Done podcast from Vital Learning. I am Morten and Røvik, and I'm here as always with my good friend and colleague Lars Rothschild Henriksen. Privet, Lars.
Privet, Morten. Good to see you as always, and as always good to be with our listeners and viewers out there.
Indeed.
We always start off with a quick reminder of the purpose of the podcast, which is to help you learn GTD or become even better GTDers. We hope that today's episode supports you in that. If you're new to GTD, we always recommend you go back and listen to the first 6 episodes where we go through the basics of GTD, the 5 steps. Today's episode number is number 127, and today's episode is a listener question episode. Woohoo!
Wee! It is some interesting questions from actually 2 separate questions from, or set of questions, you might want to call it, from the same person. And he signs his email with Kai. I'm not sure exactly how you will pronounce that, but there are some Chinese letters that I don't understand, so I don't know. Have you found out how to pronounce his name?
No, and I won't say where the letters are from either. So
they are Chinese. I looked it up. They are Chinese.
Okay, good. So we know that much. But yeah, some really good questions for us to pick up on. And, we've been asking for these questions for a while, and then we just got 2 emails last month from Kay. Mm-hmm. So we figured now it's time for a listener questions episode.
Yeah, indeed. And for us, the listener questions are a way to sharpen our brains and trying to figure out how can we answer you to give you the most value. And, if you have a listener question, send them to us. We love them, and we do answer. If not all of them on the show, some we answer actually directly on email. So feel free, send them to us. Don't expect we do answer them, but you would be surprised how many we do. So, Lars, give us the first question.
We'll go for the first one. And there's some good context for both of these questions, which is really good because that's very helpful for us to understand a bit more about the background. Otherwise, we will be guessing too much, so that's very helpful. So if you send in a listener questions, if you can also give a bit of background, that really, really helps us. This email says, Dear GTD team, I hope this message finds you well. I came across a question while reading and applying GTD in my daily life, and I was wondering if I might ask for your advice. I've noticed that GTD recommends using context lists to organize my next actions, but in my situation, I'm almost always working at my computer. If I follow this method strictly, I end up with only 2 context lists, at computer and at errands, which doesn't feel very helpful in clarifying what I should do next. Previously, I tried categorizing by areas like personal, study, and work, but that didn't seem to improve things either, since I do all of them in the same environment at my desk. I'm feeling a little unsure about how to move forward. Recently, an AI assistant suggested that I consider using categories like deep focus and light tasks instead of location-based context. I thought this was an interesting idea, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Would you have any suggestions for adapting context lists in this kind of situation, or would this be something that requires a coaching session to explore more deeply? Thank you so much for your time and kind help, and please excuse me if my English is not perfect. I'm still learning. Okay. So that was the email from Kay. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, and thank you for your email, and it is a very interesting. I've been dabbling with this because this is one of the things that we hear often, that the contexts are difficult to grasp or to work with because everything happens on one list. I do have some. I've been doing some pondering on this, and I think I might have if not the end solution, one solution to this. That I might want to recommend him, but I will let you go first, Lars. Should we just do a recap? What does GTD say about the context lists? Next actions, physical, visible next action where you have everything you need should go on a context-based next action list. And what is a next action list, Lars? What is a context, just to define it GTD-wise?
No, well, I think most people will be familiar with this and how we organize in GTD, where we have a set of standard lists that will be, familiar to most people when they start off with GTD. So as we go through the trainings today, we'll talk about, you might have a next action that you need to do at the office, so you create an at office list, or you might have a next action to do at home, so you create an at home list, or calls or errands or agenda lists for the things that you need to talk to someone about. So they have a place to go. But as you say, it's one of the most common places that people ask about, how do we actually do this? And I like to point out that it's one of the places where we tweak GTD the most to make sure that it works best for you. And I don't have any idea how many times over the years I've changed mine, both from a technology perspective on what each of them, how they could work with them, and also using different tags, separate lists, folders, lined up with areas of focus, multiple tags, tried out so many different things and continually tweak it. And, it's not, I think it was last month where I tweaked my lists again, that I had separated them into two, and I decided, no, I want to keep it as simple as possible. So I have, just 2 or 3 lists here at the office that I tend to work from, because I have minimize the amount of active projects on my lists and ongoing things.
And I think that you are touching on a key to get the context list to work. I just want to take you through the what is the definition of a context list would be something like it's a physical location or a tool you need or a context you have to be in, like it's at the office would be a place you need to be. A tool you need could be your phone or your PC or a specific software that you need to use. Like let's say you do several tasks you would like to batch them into same place. Let's say you do Adobe InDesign, so all the Adobe InDesign tasks you need to get done could go on that list. So that when you are in Adobe InDesign mode, you can go there. And context being, I'm with my spouse, I'm at the agenda for lists. That would be agenda for the staff meeting, agenda for my one-on-one with my boss, etc. So this is the clear-cut definition of a context. And for many people that doesn't work because everything is on PC and it grows. But you're touching on what I would recommend people to do. Like when he talk about personal study work, then that is not the best. You are confusing context with the areas of focus or maybe even areas of responsibility. And the light tasks, deep focus. I know that our colleague in London, Robert Peake, at some point coined the brain dead list when he's really tired and don't have a lot of mental power to do things. He would go to that list. I tried that didn't work for me. So
I have that. That's one of the 3 lists that I have. I have the Mac, finance, and zombie. Those are the 3 lists.
Zombie. Right, okay.
Good one. Good one to have.
Well, good for you. That doesn't work for me. But my suggestion now is that we would start thinking about this with a little, how to make sure that your list doesn't have an overwhelming amount of things or stuff on them, like the next action list for PC or at office, depending on how you do this. And one of the things that I think is key is to think about using on hold lists, because if you are showing yourself all the next action you could be doing or all the side outcomes you have in your work, probably specifically your work, it can be really overwhelming. And David Allen says it is possible to have overwhelmingly many things to do without being overwhelmed. And how to do that would be probably, in my brain, I don't know what you think, Lars, I'll let you comment on this, but to take all your desired outcomes that are not and next action that are not something you are going to do before maybe 2-3 weeks from now. So what is active right now? This week, next week, maybe the week after, how far you can go, that's up to you. But think about this as a way to not overwhelm yourself. So then you will have a desired outcomes work on hold or paused or whatever you want to call that. So, and then drag just all the desired outcomes that are not active right now down there. And then you will have a ditto for next actions on pause. Just drag them down there, and they're out of your regular list, and makes it easier for you to focus on what is important, urgent now and in the next week or 2 or 3, whatever you decide to do. How does that resonate with you, Lars?
Yeah, no, it certainly does. And I've heard that actually as you walk through that description. I think 1 or even 2 of my most recent level 2 participants actually described the process somewhat similar to what you just did, with really trying to limit what we see there. And I've seen different ways to do this over the years as well. Some people will, look at the longer list that will take them longer into the future, but then they'll pick out 5 and they will flag them, or they will start them, or they will write them on paper and close everything down, and that's their list. So again, for me, it comes back to ways to work with more manageable lists, whether that's, whatever approach you end up taking. And then again, when it comes back to context, it's and I'm sure you've gotten this question many times over the years as well. So which lists do I need? Well, what do you need to put on those lists, right? Is this sort of chicken and egg thing that people tend to think that we should provide all the lists, and we've tried that, right? We tried to do that in previous versions of the seminar, and for some people they would say, that's a lot of lists. And some people didn't need all of them. So it wasn't, I've mentioned this, I think, multiple times now on the podcast, but I like the approach that we have now, where it's sort of, what do you think you need, right? Well, let's do a mind sweep. We'll clarify the next actions. We'll look at those next actions, and then we'll start off from there. That does require some more flexibility for people going forward, and having that awareness that they could tweak the system and add lists and remove lists as they go forward in life. But I really like that approach. And also the number of lists. How many should K have? It really depends on what you find on your list. So maybe what you just suggested in trying to filter and really zoom in on what is actually active right now, that'll give a more manageable set of next actions. And maybe you don't need that many lists. So maybe there's a lot going on still, and then you need multiple lists. And what I suggested, as I wrote back via email, was to perhaps think from the engage step instead. So, the goal of the organization step should be to make it as easy as possible for you to navigate and be presented with the right amount of options that you would want to see in that situation, right? So how do we then do that?
The right amount.
Yeah, exactly. And how do we then do that? Is it, like you said, physical location, tools, situation, time available, energy available, whatever, whatever works best for you. I've tried those as well over the years. I've had thought of that high energy lists as well. That has worked for me, which might be deep work today. I don't use it anymore. Typically I will block time in my calendar if I need any of those, but in the end, what makes it the most easy for you to sit down and do the right things, engage in the right things at any given time. So considering also that Kay describes both, it's the same desk where this person's sitting doing personal stuff, doing their work, doing the study things. That might be I might be looking at ways to figure out, so when I need to sit down, let's say I have a dedicated study time, next 2 hours I need to do study things. Okay, then I would want to see that list, right? So I would turn it around and say it's fun to play with. As new GTDers, it's you have these next actions, and now you have to be Sherlock Holmes, and you have to put on your hat and your magnifying glass, and now you have to go and look and figure out what list do we need here, and play around with that. And maybe next week you need different lists, and it's part of the game. That's I think the final thought from my side.
And just reminded of David Allen says that you need, this is like David Allenism's paraphrased maybe, you need as many lists as you need, but not more nor less. So how many do you need to encompass your life and at the same time keep it simple? So having it as simple as possible, without any extra fluff. I know that I've seen so many lists from my coaching clients that are, you look at the list and there is lists upon lists upon lists, and that are full of stuff that they're not doing. So that might be. I'm sure you've encountered that, Lars. And my feedback to them would be, okay, so let's rework this, because you're clearly gone into productivity pornography, which is kind of, that might be a list I might use someday. It's like it becomes a way to procrastinate by fiddling with your system. So don't do that. That is a good thing. And I would recommend to people to just, I don't know what you think about this, Lars, but I would recommend them just to have, start with a very basic list system, like an office, home, errands, maybe PC, and that's it. And maybe not more. And then see what grows out of that. Maybe you will have more, maybe you will have less. But let them grow organically. So when something, I really need a list for that, and then feel that pain for a little before you create that list, instead of that, that might be nice. We have an expression in Norwegian called kjekt å ha, which means like nice to have. Don't go for nice to have. Go for must have for that instead. So, yeah.
Completely agree. No, that's good advice. Start off simple. Complexity is it can quickly show up. So let's start off simple. Simple list manager, simple set of lists, and then build from there.
Indeed. I think we answered that question. Any other last comments?
I hope so. No, the only thing to add was that we had a similar question. I noticed I ran through the show notes document that we have, and I found that in episode 96 we had a question that was somewhat similar. So for those who are looking to get some more input on this topic, then perhaps episode 96 might be a good place to listen to as well.
And I see that, Kay twice in the other question as well said, I apologize if my English isn't perfect. Thank you for your patience. We can return that. Our English
Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, thank you for your patience with our Scandinavian accent. So thank you for still listening to this. Okay, should we go to the next question maybe?
Let's go to the second email, which contains 3 questions. So I'll go through and set up the background, and then I'll stop after the first question, and we can dive into that. So this one says, "Dear GTD coach, I hope you're doing well. As I practice GTD, there's a question that has been bothering me for quite a while, and I'd really appreciate your thoughts on it. I often find myself getting pulled away from my intended focus by sudden ideas or impulses, what David Allen might call the latest shiny object. For example, while I'm working on a task, I might suddenly think of a GTD-related question and immediately go online to search for answers on a forum. In those moments,
that never happens to us. Never.
In those moments, I skip both capture and clarify and go straight into do mode. While the action itself might take only a few minutes, I often end up going down a rabbit hole of articles or new actions and completely lose sight of the original task. I never return to my next actions list." So this tends to happen, especially when I'm working on my research-heavy tasks. Sometimes it spills into my personal life as well. For instance, I may be in the middle of studying and go to the kitchen just to get a glass of water, but when I walk past the bathroom, I notice the floor is dirty and start cleaning it. Then I realize the laundry needs doing and begin washing clothes, and by the time I snap out of it, hours may have passed and I haven't even started with what I originally intended to do. All of these impulse actions bypass my GTD system completely. here are my specific questions. And then question number 1, should I train myself to always capture any new thought or impulse or urge to act instead of acting on it directly? Let's start off with that one.
That's an easy one. Yes. Yes. Well, if with one qualification is that, as I can see it, if it is a less than 2 minutes action, that is you can do straight away. So if I have to send a text to give a message.
So if you already have the next action, you could identify that as 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I would. I'm always careful when people say always. Because there will be some specific scenarios, the fire alarm goes off. Yeah, don't capture that. Act on it, right? So there will
run
be
outside.
Specific
That's
times.
a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. Don't sit down and look at your list. Then it's time to act. But yeah, definitely try to be much more deliberate about that. And I've started to play around a bit more with what might be what you refer to, Morten, as productivity pornography. But I bought a Stream Deck after the summer camp. Now like I said, both the Stream Deck mafia and the fountain pen mafia have gotten to me now. I've started to play more with shortcuts on iOS and Mac, and have some really nice capture ones. So it captures for me without letting me see all the other stuff that I captured, because again, easily distractible, just as you described, Kay, could be walking around and seeing things and, that reminds me. So yes, definitely capture those. And I'll, you might feel that you will be capturing a lot. And I'm guessing you will, based on the descriptions here in both emails. There's high level knowledge work. It certainly sounds like there'll be a lot of ideas coming up. And I've started to notice that I'm like, I need to capture this again. Or not again, but another thing to capture, because I get so many ideas. And if I don't do that, I will do exactly what Kay described and start to go online and research and Google, and suddenly realize, what happened? And then not be able to return back. That being said, I would add that, if it bothers you, if you think that it is unproductive and you're not doing the right things, because as I read the question, I was thinking about how I might move around at the summer house. And at the summer house, I will have days where I will just walk around and I'll see something and I'll fix it. and then I'll be walking and that one looks good. And I have fun with that. And I just, when we spoke about affirmations, at one point I mentioned one that David told us at one point, which was, I can let my dogs take me for a walk. I think this is the version that I have. I don't have any dogs, but I can have a walk for myself and just run after the different things that I spot. Those tomatoes, they look good, and we need to fix some things. And so just to give that background as well, I thought I wanted to add that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, and I have another aspect of this that I would like to touch on, and that is the aspect of getting things done is for freedom, create freedom for you, so that you can feel good about what you're doing and not doing, and having that freedom to follow your intuitive hunches. Then suddenly, maybe the best thing you can do is to wash the floor, if that's really screaming at you. But then you have the freedom to do that without the other things screaming at you. But if you're doing washing the floor in the bathroom instead of doing something that you really should have done, that is procrastination. And that is never good. So having the freedom to follow your intuitive hunches and to follow the rabbit hole when you don't have anything else that is really important that you need to get done. I think that's a good qualifier. What do you think, Lars?
Yeah, no, completely agree. And again, that's also why I'm a bit hesitant to say, always you have to and do this and do that. Again, the most productive thing might be, to exactly do those things and go out into their garden or go for a walk or have a nap or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
good thing to add as well.
Yeah, but if you have a thought in your head of something you need to do the best practice is to write it down and give yourself the pause before you go to clarify it or do it. So just because what is showing up in your brain, the last is probably or could not possibly not be the most important thing you need to do, unless it is to put out a fire.
But my brain tells me it is.
Don't listen to
Look
your
at that
brain.
shiny thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay.
No, and you're kind of starting to touch on the second question, so maybe we should throw that in the mix as well, which says, if I capture something and clarify it immediately, is that risky as well? Could I still end up going off track? And how can I balance the temptation to clarify with staying focused on my main task?
Yeah, well, what I would say there is that do not clarify immediately unless you're in the clarify mode. And with that, I mean that if you are doing something else and then suddenly, oh, I remember something, I need to do this, X, Y, Z, then write X, Y, Z down instead of trying to, well, what does X, Y, Z mean? What's my next action here? Because then you procrastinate doing what you're doing. And and that is one. And then the second is that you will also give yourself and this is I remember very clearly when I learned GTD back in the days that when I started to clarify exactly the same thought that, I captured and clarified immediately after, then I got into that habit, and into that habit builds resistance to capture if you don't clarify. So that's why they are two separate steps, because you should give yourself the freedom to capture whatever you have in your mind, and then later on, when you're finished capturing, you can sit down and then clarify what it means to you. But if you do that in one go, you will procrastinate just getting it out of your head, and then you will be back to square one. What do you think, Lars?
Yeah. We can move on to the next question. Those were exactly my points.
Okay.
No, it
Sorry.
really is. But it's fun to hear that the people have this. Some people in the level 1 trainings will have this resistance to why not just clarify it immediately? Why capture it? So it's often a topic that we touch on. So it's good that Kay asks. But yeah, exactly what you said. It takes you off track, and also it switches modes in your brain. So you will have you're in capture mode. You're in coming up with good ideas mode, and then you shut that off by going into clarify mode. So again, with the assumption that this is sort of a knowledge worker that we're dealing with here, which it certainly sounds like, then there might be more good ideas in there. There might be more good stuff coming if you don't start to think too much about what you just thought and just keep that radar scanning and see what else might show up.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. Well, then we'll go for the third one then.
Yeah, please do.
We are productive. Surprise.
We love it.
Does clarify need to happen at designated times only? The GTD workbook suggests scheduling clarify sessions throughout the day. I tried setting 3 time blocks, but I often find myself wanting to clarify outside of those scheduled times. Is this flexibility okay, or does it indicate a system breakdown?
Yeah, that is a good question. So I do sometimes clarify in the middle of between, I have scheduled 3 as you have, or I have scheduled 3 of them in my brain, so depending on when I start in the morning. So I have, I will clarify and organize my inboxes when I get to the office, and then around noon I will clarify and organize whatever showed up in between, and then before I leave for home, and but suddenly I'm in the middle of something, then I capture something, and I feel. And this is contradicting a little what I said before, but it is, I get some, but I have the freedom. I can do what I want. But I capture something, and then I said, oh, now this is interesting. I have some extra thoughts I would like to add into that. So that's, I wouldn't call it maybe clarifying, but I go into a note field of the capture and then just captured all the thoughts that I have, and then I leave it. So that's the level of in between clarifying that I'm doing. So how do you think about this, Lars?
No, and that sounds very very familiar. And I've done both over the years, doing it, as up to you when you want to clarify. So let's say if we focus on email, I sit down, I show up at the office, look at my list, look at my calendar. I decide to check something off my list before starting email. Or maybe I want to go in there and clarify and organize my email, and then get on with my tasks for meetings, whatever might be the case. So in some cases I've done that, putting it in the calendar, 8 to 8:30, 12 to 12:30. That's when I clarify and organize email. Other times I don't look at my email. It really depends. Right now, I have sort of a mix, which is that I have set up my Gmail to only arrive between 8 and 9 and 12 and 1. So I will only get new emails twice per day. And for me, that's really helpful. I have done that late afternoon check as well, but I have found sometimes that it would annoy me because I would see things, spot things that I would want to act on, but I'm just heading out the door. So I wouldn't want to see them then. So I will actually leave them until the next morning and then see them at 8 or 9. This conflicts for some people, though. Like right now, when we record this, we are at the end of the accounting, for the bookkeeping for the whole year. It has to be done. And in that scenario, from one of the biggest, companies in this space globally, they would send me emails at 8:30 and expect me to respond within 10 minutes. Is this wording okay for the documents that we're creating? So it really conflicts with some people's way of working, but I think this makes sense for me.
Yeah, me too. So. Just one comment that it sounded like you are trying to kill your email snacking. I just because your middle name is email snacking, Rothschild Henriksen, isn't it?
I think you've given me that. It's not that I snack, but I'm really attracted to email. Yeah. I think that's more the case. Yeah. So no, I have my beautiful checklist, physical checklist right here next to me, with only 2 emails checked per day. The morning is done, the afternoon one is not done yet. So keeping track, and I have the inboxes here. So
yeah, and that the life is not and work is not square. Sometimes it's round, sometimes it's squiggly. I don't know how to say this, but it is moving around, and I can be in the I'm doing something. I'm on the route for working on a desired outcome, and then I understand I have to send an email to someone to get a feedback to be able to continue. And then I will sometimes, when I'm then switching to another, I will go and check if an email came, because that first project is more important for me to finish. And then suddenly I see all the emails, and I have the same problem as you. I would prefer not to see them if I can. but because they are distracting for me. So yeah. And
that certainly makes sense.
Yeah, and I really, I think we should, he writes also that, or maybe it's a she. I'm not sure. Now that it suddenly came up, we are being really, we don't know what we're talking about when it comes to foreign names. Sorry about that if we even got your sex wrong here. So, but he or she writes about the current strategy. Maybe we should just read that out and comment on that as well.
We could do that. The one thing I do want to touch on as well is the way that this is described in question 3. I often find myself wanting to clarify. So I just zoom in on that specific sentence, because that, at least for me, that triggered something that I am very aware of, or try to be, coming back to the email snacking that you mentioned, that maybe in this case, I would lean towards trying to schedule specific times and really honor those. If you don't honor what you put in your calendar, you might as well not use it. So really honoring those times, because otherwise that wanting to check, that's one of the monkeys up here that I have to keep in check, right? Because wonder what's an email, and then I
Yeah.
could go in there and check every 30 minutes or 15 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it might be. So really trying to be mindful of that. And like you said, there are occasions where there are exceptions are needed, and that's certainly fine. But really trying to, if you set up a strategy leading us to this, the next part of his email, really, really honor that and try to watch for what you want to do as opposed to what the smart version of yourself decided, yeah, this is the one I should be doing. So with that being said, let me go to the current strategy. Let's call that the last question, which is my current strategy is I capture everything without acting on it and only clarify during pre-scheduled clarify blocks. During work sessions, I only execute clearly defined next actions. For example, if my project is research the natural planning model, I only do the action, look up what NPM is, and after completing it, I immediately write down the next specific action. Does this approach align with the GTD method? Am I on the right track in trying to discipline myself and prevent being hijacked by distractions? I'd love to hear your perspective. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You want to go first on this one, or should I?
Yes, no, but I think that's, kind of summing up the three questions that we walked through. Yes, capturing everything. That's what we just spoke about. Clarifying the pre-schedule, clarify blocks, if that works for you. Again, with the thinking in mind that I just, zoomed in on with finding myself wanting to clarify. Maybe this would help, but again, play around with it, just like the amount of lists. Play around with it, see what works best. During work sessions, only execute clearly defined next actions. That sounds good. Good to me. And yeah, summarizing his project with the next action. Yeah. I don't know if I would write down the next specific action. That sort of depends where the project is going. But otherwise, I think this sounds like a good starting point for a strategy. What do you think?
No, my only adding to this would be that if you are working on, you've done a next action, and then you know what the next action is, and then you realize, well, this has a deadline for tomorrow, and it is important, so I need to set aside an hour to work on this. Then you jump out of next action thinking and then just schedule time to work on your project, move it forward. Do next action after next action until you're either finished or it stops naturally by you're waiting for someone else. So execute on clearly defined next actions is good when you don't have something scheduled, and urgent and important should go on the calendar, and everything else should be held on your list. That is, anything that is important but not urgent on your list, and everything else you should consider not doing. So, but to have that on as an addition is that when you need to move something forward fast, put it on your calendar and then just work towards the desired outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think we are at the end. Are we?
I think so. Again, really appreciate the questions. It's been a while since we had a listener questions episode. So thank you so much, Kay, for those questions. And for those of you out there watching or listening, be sure to send us your questions. Podcast at vitallearning.eu. We'd love to hear them. It adds some new angles for us to talk about GTD from, and it's interesting to hear the challenges that you face, and it's very helpful for everyone else to hear them. So especially, I don't know if you come across this, Morten, but I tend to get the feeling that when people sit there with their GTD practice, they're just starting, or they might be seasoned GTDers, and they think, oh, this is a situation that only applies to me. No, in many cases, this will apply to so many more people. So if you have that question, be sure to send it to us, and we'll pick it up in the podcast in a future episode.
Yeah, and then you are so right that the people that I talk to when I coach is that they at least it feels sometimes like they think they're the only people who have this problem. That is not so. Rest easy, you're not alone. So, okay. If we are at the end, will you take us out, Lars?
Yes, I will. First, one last note. So this will be my last podcast with this background. So if you're watching, I'll be switching to a new home office going forward. So just wanted to mark this as the final episode where I'm at this office. So let's see what it looks like next time. You'll have to check our YouTube channels to see what it looks like in the future.
Subscribe and like, I hear the young people say when they talk about YouTube.
Marketing Morten in action. A quick reminder of the GTD Summer Camp. So that was back in June. And when we release this recording, we might actually have the fixed date. We already have the tentative date for 2026. If you are considering joining us, then send me an email. I'll let you know when we open up for the signups. Also, be sure to check out the show notes for this episode, because you'll find the updated 2025 version for is it a 3-minute check-in on the summer camp? At least whatever you put together, Morten, with it's such a nice video, and it's the one that's been in the show notes for the last couple of years was the 2023. It's now updated for 2025. So be sure to go in there and check that. It gives you an idea of the fantastic vibe that you'll find at the summer camp. Mm-hmm. The other place we point you to go to is vitallearning.eu, because that is where you will find information about the different companies in the different countries, the different offerings that we have. I think when this releases, Morten, there might be a page about the masterclass as well. So be sure to go to vitallearning.eu, have a look around. You'll see all the information, GTD coaching, training in the different countries, the crucial conversations, crucial influence, the other trainings that we offer as well. Everything you'll find at vitallearning.eu. And if you're outside the Nordics Plus, as we call it, then head on over to cruciallearning.com to find your local partners.
Yes, and there will be a bit.ly link for the masterclass in these show notes. So if you want to hang out with Lars and David, Alan, and me the first time will be in February 2026 in Norway. You are most welcome to apply to be part of that. More information will then be in the bit.ly link. Yeah, Lars, good. Anything else we need to talk about before we end this show? Anything else?
No, I think you said subscribe, like, rate.
Well, we didn't rate. I didn't. No. But just if you as a listener or viewer think that what we're doing is giving you value, the way that you can pay us back is to follow us on LinkedIn. Of course, if you want to hang out with us, you can just follow us at LinkedIn. You will find Lars and me. There's links in the show note. And what we would also really like and appreciate is if you rate us on the podcast platform you're looking at. So YouTube will be subscribe and like, and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple podcasts or whatever your platform is that has ratings. That helps the discoverability of the episodes and our channel, and it helps other people to learn about getting things done so they can, make their lives better. That's why we are doing this. We want to help you guys, so help us spread the word. And with those words, I can do as I always do, is to say, until next time, stay safe and stay productive. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.